Right, well here's a today's one. It's the 13th, which is not necessarily the best day of the month, but I'm not superstitious. 13th of April, and I'm driving down what's been called one of the most expensive roads in the world, kilometre for kilometre. Although actually there's no real reason why it should be so, other than the fact that it seems to have cost so much, and so much money's been poured into it, and so little was done for many years, and people came back and poured more money in and not much was done. So it seems to me that more money was wasted on this road than on any other road in the world. It's actually the road which links Gdańsk to Torun, and I'm just getting a nice eagle just flying, or buzzard rather, small member of the eagle family, crossing over there. Hope you saw it. And so this is a brand new road. It's nice and smooth, and it's also, it's a toll road, so not everybody goes on it. The old road is still available without the toll. So if you pay the toll, you get a dual carriageway with not that much cars in it, which is of course both safer and faster. I think I like them both as much as the other, and it's quite attractive as well. It's you see a lot of, instead of there is a pleasure in watching a more human landscape. There's no doubt about it. Going through villages and that, seeing houses coming up to the roadside, people advertising their businesses and that. I like that too. But it's also quite pleasant just to look at what goes on behind the scenes, because this road cuts through what probably 90% of the country is really like. 90% of the country isn't up next to main roads, so what does that part of the country look like? Well, you can see it on the satellite from above. Anybody can look at Poland on Google Earth satellite and see how much there is of arable land that hasn't got an awful lot of dwelling on it. You can also come down one of these new motorways, which just cuts through the countryside, and you can see what normally you'd only see if you took a quad bike or a horse and went pony trekking, so and even then you wouldn't necessarily get very far, because you've got field after field is barricaded off with fences, so it wouldn't always necessarily be easy. In England there's a series or a whole network of what you call public footpaths, which is not the case so much here. So while on the one hand the tendency to put fences up is not quite as much as it is in the UK, there are lots of fields that are not fenced at all, but on the other hand, where there is a fence, that may not necessarily be that people have considered access at all points in it. Whereas usually in the UK, if you do get a fence, then almost inevitably you're going to have a stile somewhere, and you're going to have a signpost saying public footpath, and you get them, quite on a regular basis, so you can get more or less from wherever to wherever by public footpaths. And it's great when you want to have a walk in the country. You can walk down these public footpaths, and it's great. Less so is that the way that works in Poland. Clearly you can go for large walks in the country, because that's what the pilgrimages all do, and they set off from all sorts of different locations in Poland and get to Częstochowa. But often they're walking down the sides of roads like this with a police cordon, because there's not an awful lot else that they can do. So and actually going for a tramp about in the countryside, well, if you knew what you were doing, if you'd been there before, then you would have a better chance of success, although you still could get some surprises of new places fenced up that weren't fenced before. There's a lot of money for that coming from the European Union to farmers here now. They get their agricultural subsidies, and they go, oh, I know what I'll do with that, I'll buy a new fence. I always wanted a fence. So they go and they buy a fence. And as you can see, when you look at these fences, it's not that there's a stile in them or a gate in them that you can get over and leave the animals behind every few moments. They're just there, fences. So yeah, one of the best ways to actually see it, therefore, isn't so much walking through it, although if you could walk through it, that would be, of course, bringing you closer to it. But one of the best ways to see it is just to get out on a car journey, on a motorway that cuts through the middle of it. When, like, for example, take this farmhouse. Just stuck out in the middle of nowhere. You certainly can't expect him to have got a road leading to the motorway all of his own, so he's presumably got some discrete road that leads back through that forest and gets to some other country lane, and then finally gets to some paved road or asphalted road which gets him out of there. But I bet that guy who lives in that place, he has to go up and down very muddy, rutted, makeshift roads in between his home and any asphalted road. Here we have an asphalted road, but it's only just, or it's probably not even that, it's just gritted. It's been flattened and gritted with road grit, which is quite heavy in dust. So you drive down that, you're going to get a dirty car. Looking at the copse of trees around that nice little barn or farmhouse, which is quite charming. Not sure it's inhabited. The windows are out, but looking at the copse of trees around it, you probably noticed the mistletoe on there. That's a feature of trees in Poland that they tend to have. You see it more, of course, at this time of year before the leaves are on. The trees, the leaves are just coming out, the leaves are just in bud at the moment, it being April the 13th and all. So you can still see, I mean, there's one example, there's a couple of examples there. Let me see if I can focus up on it a little bit more. It's a bit difficult, it's travelling down the road at quite a sizable speed. And there's another one. You probably can, there's those ones there. So you can probably see a lot of well, there's, by the way, that's what the toll cabins for this motorway are looking like over there. You can see. So yeah, mistletoe's a parasite, obviously. It has green leaves, which means it's got chlorophyll in there, and it's therefore making some of its own sugars from photosynthesis, but it also lives on trees parasitically. So it's sort of like your halfway mark between a fungus and a higher plant. It's like your kind of Archaeopteryx missing link thing. And it's poisonous, so don't eat the leaves, don't bite them, don't add them to cocktails, because you might think it's romantic that you can pull your mistletoe leaf out of the cocktail and then kiss somebody under it or something like that, because there's this tradition of kissing under the mistletoe. Don't include it in food in any way. It's poisonous, okay? Don't ask me what the toxins are. It's the sort of thing which I might sometimes know and sometimes not know, but basically you want to avoid either the berries or anything to do with it, the leaves, the berries, anything from mistletoe should not enter your mouth, okay? Whatever might be entering your mouth underneath the mistletoe, that should not actually be part of the mistletoe itself. So there we are. So yeah, this is just a taster of of what I'm doing at the moment, and to show you something, what the money's going on in Poland. Nice new roads. And it is a good thing to have these roads because it takes an awful lot off the journey, especially now that the train to Gdańsk from Warsaw is going in a very roundabout way because they're fixing the railway line. So yeah, I think I ought to say a little bit about a decision that I've made recently with regard to my YouTube videos. I've been following an algorithm where I didn't post up the next one until the previous one had 100 views, and inevitably they would get to 100 views, but sometimes that meant waiting. I wouldn't ever put up like 2 or 3 in a day like I used to. I'd always do one in 2 or 3 days. Sometimes it took a lot longer than that to get up to the 100 views. So the backlog just got bigger and bigger. So now I've got about an 8-month. There are things about 8 months ago that I filmed that are not yet coded up. That wouldn't be the problem. I mean, I'm not coding them up because I'm not needing them. They need to have the post-production done on them from 8 months back, or ones from 6 months back still haven't had the post-production done on them, or 7 months probably, and then there are some from about 8 months that still need to go up. And if I don't take action soon, then that's going to get to a whole year, and I don't really fancy having a whole year's. These are army vehicles. I don't think there's any big secrecy about filming them though, because I can't see that there's anything tremendously. And they're openly army because that's an army registration plate, but they look army anyway. But I can't see there's any breach of security in filming that. That seems to be uncontroversial. So. Yeah, I have to change that. I have to change that algorithm. And another large bird flew across there. I think it was a stork. Probably not visible to naked eye. Maybe it is. I don't know. Let me see if I can get up on it a bit. Maybe you'll see it. I don't know if you saw it at all. Across there. Fortunately, I changed back to HD. Last night, so hopefully that means that we're getting a bit more detail on this now. I don't bother with HD if I'm not going to get decent light, but the light is fine right now, so I put back on HD again. So what did I want to say about what I'm going to change the algorithm? Well, basically the algorithm has to change, and I wrote an email. I didn't write an email. I wrote a post on my blog, Hulaganov.tv, and one of my favourite subscribers, because not only does he watch on YouTube, he also follows on the blog, and I'm always happy when people do that, because I wanted. And that blog's got more than just the video. It's also got various articles and polls and things like that on it, and there's more ways to interact on it. So actually there are comments here, but you can't get into any kind of sensible discussion. Whereas in theory you could there, although nobody really has so far gone into really big discussions there, in the way that some of them have kicked off here, but in YouTube. But I would like it so that more people actually go to Hulaganov.tv and subscribe. If you've got a WordPress account, which a lot of people have, then please subscribe. If not, you can get an email subscription, which means you get an email when I write a new article, and you can either click on it or not, as the case may be. Of course, it doesn't cost anything. It's like subscribing here doesn't cost anything. Always happy for people to subscribe here or there, by the way. People do like to sometimes ask me questions, and one of the first things I do when I get asked a question is I go and check whether the person's actually included me in their subscription list, and if not, then I feel probably, well, I do still answer questions if they're good questions, but I won't answer a silly question from somebody that isn't that's a non-subscriber. And if it's not a decent question, and also the question comes and the person hasn't bothered to even subscribe to me, and yet they want me to give time to answer their questions, and the questions aren't even things which are going to benefit other people, then sorry, I just switch off at that point probably. So basically, and if people ask me questions, I do prefer it to be a public ask rather than a private ask. If I get asked questions privately, then what I usually do is I ask if I can answer them on the blog. So therefore the answering to the questions that are not asked publicly in the comments is actually on the blog. And sometimes people might ask me a question even on the comments here, and I'll answer it on the blog, because it's difficult always within a few hundred signs, letters, a few hundred letters or whatever they call it, to make a sensible answer to some people's questions. Sometimes questions are very good questions. Actually, most of the time I get asked good questions, thankfully, which is a very good thing. Most of the time the questions that I get asked are good questions. Sometimes they repeat questions which were asked earlier, then I try and just point people possibly in the right direction where the answer already has been made. And some questions are not so good, and I kind of ignore them. So, but if you subscribe and if you want to ask a question, and if you subscribe, then certainly your question receives a certain degree of priority. It's not going to turn a pathetic question into a genius question, of course, but at least it will get a bit more sympathy from me. Put it that way. And I'm not going to ignore good questions from people just because they're not subscribers. I mean, that would be silly. That'd be looking a gift horse in the mouth. So it's not absolutely essential. I'd rather people subscribe because they wanted to, but then I'm assuming that if people ask me questions, it means they're interested in my stuff. Anyway, I certainly don't do sub for sub. So anybody that's got my subscription can be sure that I didn't do it politically. That it means that I'm interested in what they're going to produce and put up on YouTube, and that I'll probably watch it. Maybe not every single thing. My subscribers certainly don't watch every single thing of mine. I mean, I've got about 3,700 getting on for subscribers at the moment, and maybe only 10% of them watch most of what I do. But then there's those. But everybody's got a choice. You see, everybody has a choice what they want to watch. At least you get a stream of it, and you can pick what you like. Some people only want the travelogue. Some people only want the language stuff. Some people, now that I'm doing animations, might only want that. People just pick what they want from it. Same as I do from the people that I'm subscribed to. I don't necessarily watch everything that they make, as those that I'm subscribed to that I think are fantastic, but I still can't manage to watch one of their things every single day. I mean, if you take, for example, Tony Padbury, I think the guy's a very talented videographer, and I think he and his wife are lovely people, and it always gives me positive energy to watch their videos. But I still can't always manage to watch everything that they do, because they do quite a lot. So I watch perhaps 1 in 2 or 3 of the things that they do. Doesn't mean to say that the things that I've missed are not good. I'm sure they're brilliant, but it's just a question of what you can manage to do with your free time, that's all. And I understand that the same is going to apply to me from my subscribers. People are going to subscribe, and then they're only going to watch a fraction, which might be a very small fraction, it might be a larger fraction of the things which I produce. That's fine. So please don't let it stop you subscribing. Subscribing isn't a deal whereby I'm expecting you to watch everything I do and then I'm going to ask questions later. That's not the idea of subscribing. The idea of subscribing is so that you get reminded when I put things on, yeah, and amongst them there'll be things that you actually want to watch, hopefully. if you've subscribed. Okay, so wrapping that up, I mean, one of my subscribers, Peter, very good man, he speaks his mind. He said, I don't think you need any algorithm at all. You should just be spontaneous. So, and there's a lot of truth in that, because the algorithm is a good pacer and ensures the right kind of variety happening on the channel, but it still doesn't, you know, if it blocks spontaneity, then that's probably not a good thing. So I'm probably going to get rid of all the algorithms now and just upload things. You know, the things which I'm now doing currently, I'll probably upload them as they happen, and especially if there's anything which is particularly good, and then I'll be going back and in between times and uploading the stuff which is still from last summer. At least now that we're coming into another summer, it'll be a bit more seasonal, put it that way. And hopefully you might catch up again, so that I'm just within a couple of months or weeks of reality. I mean, there's been times when I had nothing at all in stock, when if I filmed something, it would go up within a matter of days. That's or even the same day, or even within an hour, and that's maybe even better. Maybe that's Peter's point, was that, that was more immediate. That was a more immediate connection, and that he liked it better. So that's what we're going to do then. We're going to work backwards we're going to work back into that direction, so that things are more current. If I don't get 100 views per piece, well, that's just something, an irritation that I will have to put up with in my, they've changed it anyway, so that you can't easily look at a person's channel anymore and go down when they've got something like 1,000 videos or something and see what their least favourite things were. So it doesn't show up that much anyway now, and it's difficult for me even to go down all that far and find out how my least popular ones have fared. So maybe my obsession with that was just stupid. Probably it was. So it's a change. That's why I'm going to change it all. I don't know if you noticed the lovely the redness that there is in the pines here. That's something. Oh, we're coming to the end of this motorway now. So that's something where you can always tell the pine tree because of that colour, the red colour, and sometimes it really, in certain light, it shows up really well. The redness of the trunks on the pines there. So it's not so reddish now, but you get the right light, and that's quite a sight. Right, I better stop then. We've got to the end of the motorway, and you've seen what this new motorway looks like, and how easy it is to drive down it. Thank you very much for your company. Bye bye.